Hey, what's up, everybody? Remember, if you like the videos, like, subs, silly comments, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. Another kind of game theory video. I want to, what's old is new. I want to talk about why Guilty Gear is the worst game ever made. Sort of, right? And I want to talk about some different theories and, ideas that I've talked about games and how one of them is always that, what people like and what they hate the most about fighting games is that it's competitive, right? So one of the things that people hate the most about fighting games is that they can actually be the loser, right? You know what I mean? When I've talked about these other kind of, and I'm gonna compare this to Guilty Gear in some ways. People hate when they feel that they lose to something that they have no control of, right? Oh, Dragon Punch, the throw Dragon Punch mix up had too much of an impact. It's too simple. An old school Street Fighter, right? Oh, you're random. You did a random DP. Oh, you randomly threw me. You're cheap. I don't have control over how you play the game, right? Like, oh, you did a random custom combo on me, whatever. Of course, custom combos in Alpha 2 are, that's a whole nother situation, but, roll with me here. Oh, CVS2, oh, you did a roll super. Oh, that's not skillful, right? But, throughout video games and fighting games, right? The thing that people like the most about fighting games, generally, take this with a grain of salt, is that they can win in that competitive endeavor. But the thing that they hate as well is that they can lose in that competitive endeavor. And when I talk about Guilty Gear, in a retrospective, you got to remember Guilty Gear, hard to digest game at first. You know what I mean? People couldn't, watch my videos about how the Dust Loop saved Guilty Gear when you could actually see the Street Fighter in Guilty Gear. Ironically enough, because Guilty Gear was kind of, it was taken in by this like very nerdy anime crowd, right? You know what I mean? And they thought that they found the best game ever. Oh, Guilty Gear is so complicated. There's instant blocking, there's FD, just defend, or what's it called? Instant blocking, faultless defense, regular blocking. There's RCs, there's FDCs, you know what I mean? There's bursts, bursts weren't in the original Guilty Gear, but you get what I'm saying. The game was so complicated, and this like nerd demographic felt that, oh, we have the game. This is our game. It's so much more complicated and better than Street Fighter. You know what I mean? Which then, ironically enough, Guilty Gear finally started becoming popular when you could see the Street Fighter in Guilty Gear, right? Watch that video, how the Dust Loop saved Guilty Gear. It's completely fucking true. You know what I mean? You could actually see the Street Fighter. But, talking about how people don't like stuff that they can't control. And this is, talking about kind of the hypocritical nature of, fighting game players, right? It's very funny because this nerd demographic feels like, oh, I found the perfect game. It's Guilty Gear. It's so complicated. I have my, my, safe jump set up, my completely, you're in hell, you're in bullshit. You got to hold this, hold that, whatever, right? But an easy example that kind of shows you why these nerds then get mad at Guilty Gear is I've made a video about this before. Because it's complicated, just blocking in Guilty Gear, you cannot control your opponent, right? So if I'm like boom, 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 or wait, what am I? I'm sorry. He's got to block that, right? But what if he were to do, sorry, where am I? This shows how much I do training mode stuff. Flawless defense, right? If I time this, oh, what am I doing? Flawless defense, God, Jesus Christ, my fingers are a little slow right now. But you know what I mean? Like, wow, I can't even control the guy, how they block, right? And that's frustrating to the Jimmy, to the nerd, right? It's like, oh, you're random. Why would you do that there? Why would you do this here? Oh, you made me lose because of this. Even in blocking in Guilty Gear, there's a uncontrollable element that people can get mad at. Like, oh, fuck, why would he FD there? I had my amazing setup there. He's supposed to hold that block string. It's like, oh, I can't control how the opponent even blocks my attacks in Guilty Gear, right? Do you get what I'm talking about? How, the best and the worst part about video games is it's a competitive endeavor. But people will complain like, oh, you're random, I can't control that. Well, you can't even control how somebody plays in Guilty Gear, right? You can't even control how they block, right? Also, I think it's funny when you think about Guilty Gear, throughout the series, all these nerds that they found like, oh, this game is so complicated, it's so crazy, right? And then now, look at Guilty Gear where it is now. You know what I mean? The community, how mad they are about me. Like, all they try to do is just recreate old combos and tech that I did. But this game that they loved for being so complicated, now they want it to be easier. So you got dudes who just macro every combo, even like, oh, Guilty Gear is so much more. And here's the thing is too, and it's fucking true because how many of my fucking haters have I showed? These guys were old dudes when I was beating them as a kid in tournaments, right? And these dudes are still playing the game 20 years later, right? 20 years later, this game, oh, it's so amazing. Oh, it's so complicated. Oh, it's so much better than Street Fighter. Now these nerds, they want to make it easier on themselves. Oh, they macro every button. You know what I mean? We want to have all these macros. You got dudes that are even putting out fucking task videos they want fucking execution credit for a fucking task video. Task means you didn't even fucking do anything in it. Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Isn't that crazy? You know what I mean? Like the hypocritical nature of, the fighting game community that they thought they found this game. Oh, it's so complicated, so much better than Street Fighter. And now they want to dumb it down because, oh, this isn't, fuck, we don't like the fact that we can't control the opponent. It's got to be easier because we all have all this amazing tech. And it's like, oh, well, fuck, I'm not good enough to do this tech, right? And, that gets over to, another thing that I've talked about video games. People don't realize that, I talk about, skill is a part of games. There's nothing in this life that says you should automatically be good at a video game, right? Just because you're a nerd doesn't mean you deserve the gold star. Oh, I found Guilty Gear. That's why you see so many of these Guilty Gear players like, dude, these huge fucking nerds. Like, dude, think about that. How many years was I winning tournaments in this game as a kid? Sick as fuck. Sick in between matches with Kai. Kai in old school Guilty Gear. I guess Kai has technically been bad in a lot of games, right? I think Kai, one of the only games he's actually considered good in is, I guess, Slash, and one of the X-Arts he's considered pretty good, right? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but generally speaking, he's been a lower tier character in most games he's been in, right? You know what I mean? And I'm winning these, like, even think about now, right? Even when I was playing online, which I say loosely, right? I just randomly sign on, and I was beating these guys, right? I'm beating these guys. Do you think I practice this game? I don't fucking practice this game. You know what I mean? I'm beating these guys just fucking doing whatever the fuck. Because the thing is, too, all these fucking setups that they have, which they should be able to beat me. I don't know how fucking people weren't destroying me when I played this game randomly on them. Especially the fucking surgery on my hands, broken ass controller. I don't practice this game. You guys have all these amazing setups that you even fucking macro for that you're not even fucking really doing legitimately with your fucking own skill, right? And they would fucking lose to me because they're just not that good, dude. Which is funny, of course, because then you see people like, oh, well, Clayton probably has no neutral. Oh, yeah, Clayton, who was winning all these tournaments. Are you sure? You know what I mean? And who knows? Maybe the next time I play online, maybe they'll finally be able to beat me. I don't know. But I just thought that, I was thinking about this as well because, as I've talked about before, people want to pretend that skill isn't part of games, and people are always coming up with a new excuse like, oh, Guilty Gear, Street Fighter's cheap, Dragon Punches, people are random in that. Or like, oh, Capcom versus SNK, I get hit by a roll super. That's random. This is Guilty Gear. This is real skill. Which, ironically, Guilty Gear didn't even really become accepted as the quintessential anime game until you could see the Street Fighter and Guilty Gear. And then all this complicated stuff, in Guilty Gear, it's like, fuck. Now Guilty Gear, we can see, you know what I mean? It's not just about doing an FDC cancel fucking infinite, you know what I mean? Which was not a digestible mechanic. And we talk about narrative in video games and how you sell them to a consumer. Again, I got so many of these game theory videos, and it's hard to even talk about this shit because I'm always fucking right. I've never been wrong about anything, so it's just ridiculous. But, hopefully you get what I'm getting at, right? The Jimmy, the nerd, saw like, oh, fuck, man. I learned all these complicated setups and fuck, it's not doing shit because I actually don't have the execution to do all these complicated setups. Oh, let me make the complicated setup even more easy now. Let me macro and everything, even though you loved Guilty Gear before because it was so complicated. You see, like Guilty Gear, it's like a weird game in that sense. You know what I mean? That you can't even control how the opponent blocks. If you get how deep I'm trying to get with this conversation, right? And like I said, I say a lot of good things about Guilty Gear, and people are like, "Well, why don't you play anymore?" And of course, just like I'm just older, and I just don't care that much to play games. And when I have energy, I'd rather do something else. Besides, even if I had a good working controller, and I didn't have surgery on my hands and all that kind of stuff, I don't think I would play. Maybe if I had more energy or something like that, if I wasn't sick all the time, maybe like the fatigue or something, maybe I might be a little more inclined to play video games if that was the case as well. But there's just other things in life, and like I said, Guilty Gear, the series to me I do think it's stale. Like I said, once you get to accent core and all this kind of stuff, it's just funny because another thing I've said about this game, I felt like Guilty Gear, too many kind of like fuck neutral moves. I hate EX moves. They started adding stupid EX moves. Guilty Gear more and more just kind of felt like, oh, what does this character do? Oh, he now knocks you down into his bullshit. Like the characters weren't as fresh anymore. I don't like the new EX moves in this game mostly. I think they're mostly pretty boring, which is kind of funny. You talk about like, oh, Clayton probably has bad neutral, yet this fucking game, you love that they started adding more fuck neutral moves, right? Which is one of the worst things about this update of this game, right? Like I fucking hate the fucking, I like the idea of EX moves, but I don't like the new EX moves that they added in this game, generally speaking. A little too much, EX Sidewinder. Come on, is that skillful? They're like dumb reaches and that kind of stuff. It's not very interesting to me in that sense, but, better than how EX moves are done in other games, but you could see the writing on the wall that they were unfortunately kind of gymifying this game a little bit. But anyway, hopefully you got what I'm talking about. Remember, if you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. The end.